Hi, everybody. Welcome to 24/7's weekly workshop on virtual interview prep. I'm Emma Rauschkal, the Director of Marketing here at 24/7. And for those of you who aren't as familiar, we are a staffing and recruitment firm that helps full-time and freelance candidates get matched to marketing, creative, and tech jobs. And over the last 6 months or so, many companies have had to move to at least some form of virtual interview process. So, really, today, a virtual interview is just as important as in person. And with the competition for jobs being so high, there's more applicants for every job. It's really important to hone your interview skills. So, we're excited to be here with you today and be able to share some best practices. Before we jump in, a couple of quick housekeeping items. We have you all muted for the presentation, but please feel free to use the Q&A function to submit your questions, and we'll be sure to get to them at the end, time permitting. We also received a number of excellent questions through the registration process, so we'll try to get to those as well. And we'll be sharing a copy of today's presentation as well as a recording of the workshop after the webinar. And with that, I am very excited to introduce my colleague, Brittany Morgan. She is an account manager at 24/7. She's been with the company for 4 years out of our New York office. So Brittany, take it away.
Hello. Like Emma said, I have been with 24/7 for 4 years. Can't believe it. And I'm really excited to be here with you guys today to help you on, some interview prep and best practices for specifically online interviews, virtual interviews. As far as types of roles that I work on here, I work on our full-time division. So really across digital, e-com, marketing, PR, sales, a lot of fun stuff. So if you have even any questions on those later on, maybe we can get to them as well. And again, yes, excited to be here. So this is extremely important. I mean, video interviews are just as important as in-person interviews. Honestly, if not even more, because it shows that you can kind of roll with the punches and, do something that you've never done before. Virtual interviews, it's your chance to really make an impression on this hiring manager or this employer. And you really want this to be your opportunity to stand out from the rest. I mean, when you're in person, you can kind of bounce off of someone's energy and, read their body language, and things like that are a little bit easier. So you do have some of those obstacles when you're doing something virtually and online. I mean, you can see someone through the camera, but for some reason you're just not, I don't know, your energies don't match up as well sometimes. So, this is definitely just a good chance for you to make sure, you're doing your research, you're preparing, you're ready for any questions that, come your way, and just make sure, obviously technology can be a little iffy, but, you're testing everything as well. So with that being said, test your tech. This is extremely important. If you want to test it beforehand, just make sure that your Wi-Fi, you have a really good network connection. Make sure that you have the right, whether you have to download Zoom or any other type of application, make sure that's downloaded. Sometimes I would even say, make sure, if you're doing it on your computer, you have it downloaded on your phone as well in case your Wi-Fi goes out. And then you have, something set up in case. And it just proves that you were really prepared, you were ready, Another thing is, do your research on both the company, of course, always, but also the person that you're interviewing with. I would always say to look up their LinkedIn, see a little bit about their career trajectory, how they got into this role, where they come from. Sometimes you can see maybe you went to the same university or you're from the same hometown. I mean, those are just little things that you can kind of get ahead and have a little insight to that and slowly work your way into the conversation. And it just lets you ease in a little bit better. Also, get dressed from top to bottom. This is also very important. I strongly believe that when you're dressed the part, you will perform better. So whether you feel your best in jeans or whatever it may be, put that on, put on a dress, put on slacks, anything that makes you feel good and makes you feel confident and like you're in a real time interview. I would say avoid sweatpants. For some reason, when we're in sweatpants, we're a little slouchier. We just feel like we're not, I don't know, you feel like you're on a Zoom with one of your friends doing a happy hour, whatever it is. So just dress the part, make sure you're wearing pants. You never know if you have to stand up for anything, and find the right setting. I mean, make sure that, your background is clean and clear. You don't have a lot of like clutter in the background. Make sure that there's no toddlers running around or dogs or whoever it is in the house. Make sure you're in a quiet space. Obviously, this is something that a lot of people have had trouble with. Even us when we're on meetings every day, there's always something going on. I mean, if something does happen, just laugh about it, move on, like solve the problem quickly. But yeah, definitely try as much as you can to be in a quiet area.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we're all working from home right now, so you can't control everything. I think people are more understanding, but definitely try to control, what you can in terms of your setting.
Mhm.
And then your point about testing your tech. I remember we were doing one of these workshops a couple of weeks ago, and the sound on my laptop just stopped working. Luckily, we had an extra 10 minutes so we could troubleshoot, but you never know what's going to happen with technology. So give yourself that buffer so you're not like down to the wire right before.
Mhm.
It will just make you more stressed out than you need to be.
Yeah. And then you forget everything that you prepared. So, okay. So interview questions, really, I would say, these are probably ones that you'll get often. Obviously, every interview is different. Every employer is going to ask you different questions, but definitely, something that you will always be asked is either why did you leave your current role or why are you looking to leave? And that is just something employers are always seeking. And honestly, the honesty is the best policy. So be truthful, let them, this is a crazy time. And, if you were let go because of everything that's happening, you're not alone. A lot of people are in your situation and no one's going to think any differently. So, let them know that's the reason. If you needed to take time off for a family member or even your own health concerns, whatever it may be, honesty is always the best policy. Just explain that. And then why do you think you'd be a good fit for this role? So something that I always think is really important is to always have specific examples to back up your point. So, if anyone can come on here and say that they're extremely detail oriented or they're a quick problem solver, but it's like, okay, now tell me why. What did you do that proves that you are detail oriented or, whatever it may be. So always make factual and situational relationships between your past experience and what's in the job description. Make sure you're reviewing the job description. Make sure you're looking at, any of the skills in there. Is there a certain software that you have experience with that they're looking for? Those kind of key points are really, I would say, big parts of things that you should discuss because employers love when you already know their softwares and the types of tools that they're using, because it allows them to skip through a lot of the onboarding and training process. You're already coming in with all this experience. And then strengths and weaknesses, this is always going to be a question. Again, same thing, just really come up with examples as to like what you've done in your, I would say, most recent employment that will be strong for you in this role. And then also with weaknesses, it's okay, we're all human, we all have weaknesses. Obviously, you want to turn it into a positive as well, but don't come up with some like crazy situation. Just make it flow, make it easy. And then this one is actually really important. Are you comfortable working remotely? This is something that obviously a few months ago, maybe not all of us have been, and maybe some of us have never even worked remotely. I know that at 24/7, we had to kick up a lot of our tech and we weren't sure if it was going to work, but we're here. And, everyone really was able to pivot and, figure out how to navigate this remote world. So obviously your answer is yes, but just make sure you're being truthful about it. Make sure you have a computer at home, or, if the company's going to send a laptop or whatever it may be, you just know how to kind of operate the technology and stuff, and you feel comfortable, staying on task. Sometimes it can be hard when you're not surrounded by everyone that's working really hard and all the hustle and everything. So just making sure that you're able to, focus as well.
Yeah, I love what you said about looking at the job description ahead of time, doing that research, and then coming up with examples that relate back to the responsibilities that they're looking for. I think that's a great assignment to sort of task yourself with ahead of an interview. And that way, when there's questions about why you think you're the right fit for the role, you have hard and fast examples that are based off of exactly what they're looking for.
Mm-hmm. Yep, definitely. Okay, so presenting your resume in an interview, starting with your either most recent experience or where you kind of started out your career, I personally don't have a preference. I think whatever works best for your brain and how you operate. If you want to work from, once you graduated kind of up into, what you're doing now, which might pertain the most to this role, or vice versa. Really, whatever works for you. There's no right or wrong way. I personally don't think so. But also, definitely spend the most time on the role and the skills that pertain best to the role that you're interviewing for. So whether that was your most recent experience or maybe a prior experience, that's what they want to hear. They want to know, what's your skill set that you can come in here and do a great job in this role. So, share specific examples. I mean, if you are measured on KPIs and things like that, share that with them. I think employers are always very wowed when you know your stuff. I mean, you are the one that was working this role. You know what you were doing best, and you should be able to speak to, how you increased sales, or how, if you were a growth marketing manager, like, what did you do in these paid campaigns that helped increase anything? I mean, again, you were doing the role best, so you can definitely speak to it. It's your time to sell yourself, your resume, whatever's on the paper. Like, this is you talking in person, and it's the best way to sell yourself. Just make sure you know your stuff. And with that being said, like, reread your resume before your interview. Obviously, like I said, you were in the job, you were doing it, but there are some times that you'll miss things when you're reviewing the job description and your resume. You'll be like, oh yeah, I forgot, this was in this job description. I should make sure I touch on this point. Again, with, making sure you have specific examples. So, if you were working on a project, what did you specifically do that contributed to this project? What was the outcome? How did you help push it forward? I think that that's also very important. Again, make sure the situational, factual things. And then this one's really important. Being cautious when explaining, moving from one employer to the next. You never want to talk poorly about a current employer, a previous employer. It really just doesn't leave a great taste in a hiring manager's mouth, because, if you do end up working for them, then they think that, you could be going out and saying that about their company. And also, you just never know who's connected. I mean, you could easily be interviewing with the CEO of your previous company's best friend. And then there you go. That's not going to do good things for you. So it is okay to be honest in why you left, but definitely just never talk poorly about them. And then also share team relationships, talk about teams that you worked cross-functionally with, whether, if you're working with the creative team, the sales team, marketing, whatever it is. A lot of companies, everyone's org structures are a little bit different. So for one role, you could be working cross-functionally with all of these different teams. And then in the next role, that could easily be one team. So I think that that's also very important, show who you work with, show that you can collaborate. And those are also very important things to just touch on for sure.
Yeah, I think that's such a great point too, especially touching back on your ability to be able to work from home. While we're all sort of separated right now, it's important to continue those relationships, be able to communicate clearly, come up with a system that works. So those examples of how, you were able to work either cross-functionally or managed a team or within your own team, are even more important now. That soft skill of, clear communication and team building, I think is really important.
Yep. 100%. Oh, the elevator pitch. Elevator pitch is still very much important. I mean, this is something that I feel like has been around for years. And I feel like it's something I learned in maybe even high school, like starting that young. And really just to prepare your personal selling points in an elevator pitch. I mean, sometimes you never know how much time you have with someone, and you could easily be, out to coffee and you overhear something, and, maybe it's a potential employer that you want to work there, and, you have 3 seconds to sell yourself, go for it. Nothing's off limits. I mean, now during this time, you might not run into someone in a coffee shop or anything, but even in the interview process, if you're meeting with multiple people in a, if you're interviewing for an hour, but you're meeting with 4 people in the company, you don't have that long for them. So, just make sure that you have your strong points made out already. So, your current role, what role you're looking to get into, years of experience, your expertise in the industry, and any applicable skills. So those are all extremely important things. This is something that you will practice, and it will get better over time. And you'll probably end up like taking some things out, putting some things in, depending on, the types of roles that you're interviewing for, looking to get into. But practice makes perfect. You can literally practice it to yourself in the mirror, look at yourself when you're doing it. I mean, this is your chance to just show that you're confident in your ability. Confidence is key. And just proving that, you are ready and you can do this job. And again, just being able to pitch yourself is huge. I mean, you are your best cheerleader. So, you know what you can do best. So just show that to the, your hiring manager, the company that you're seeking.
I love that idea too, like practice when you're getting ready or in the shower, making dinner. It's not always natural to pitch ourselves. Sometimes it feels like we're boasting about it, but it's so important to your point, like you're the one who can best sell your strengths.
Yeah.
So just a good idea to practice even saying the words out loud.
Yeah. And even going back to that point that, sometimes it's not natural, and a lot of people don't feel comfortable talking about themselves and, hyping themselves up, for lack of a better word. But again, it's just something that'll come with practice. The more you do it, you'll feel more confident in it. You'll be able to do it. It's not a weird thing. In an interview, you have to do it. You don't know how many people are interviewing for the role. And so you definitely want to stand out.
Totally.
Oh, the thank you note. I love this one. Thank you notes are still very much important. I can't stress this enough. I've had clients that I've worked with who, will get on a call with me and say, I have not hired people in the past because they didn't, for the only reason that they didn't send me a thank you note. I mean, yeah, it is so important. Just an email. I mean, it doesn't have to be anything crazy. Handwritten notes are always a beautiful gesture, but an email these days just does the trick. Make sure when you're on your interview that you get their contact information. Make sure you have their email. If you're working with a recruiter, we will always have that, or we'll be happy to forward along your thank you to the client. And, you know, proofread your message. This is huge. This is kind of like your final, I guess, impression that they're going to get of you. You know, you just spent all this time talking about yourself, like selling yourself, you know, telling them that you're amazing. And then you send an email that has grammatical errors and misspellings, and it's just not going to look great. So double check that. Always send it out within 24 hours of your interview. You do not have to send it 3 minutes after you get off the call. That is okay. Especially if you're working right now, like they know that you're busy, but as long as you get it within that 24-hour time frame, it also, you know, just shows that you're really interested in this job. You know, you took the time to write out this thank you. I always say, like, write something that you talked about in your interview, whether it was something on the role or maybe you connected on, I don't know, like a restaurant you've both been to or something. Those are always good things to add in there because it proves to them that you were listening. And two, it really just shows that like you connected on something. And, you know, after their long day of meetings and, you know, doing whatever they need to do in their day to day, they can come back and say, oh yeah, we did talk about this. Like it was a great conversation. So those are all really important things. Again, thank you notes, always, 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 even if you aren't interested in the job, still send a thank you note. Back to the point where you never know when you're going to run into this person again. You never know down the line who they might know, you know, just for networking purposes. Always send a thank you. You know, just be appreciative of the time that people are taking out of their busy days to connect with you, and it won't go unnoticed.
Such a good point. I think too, I've heard of candidates right after an interview, just like pull up the notes tab in your phone, write down a couple things that you talked about. That way you don't feel pressure to send the thank you right then and there, but you also don't have to worry about forgetting, you know, the specific example you want to use a few hours later.
Yep, exactly.
Amazing. Well, Brittany, thank you for kicking us off. And now we do have some time for Q&A, so we will jump right in. Again, please feel free to use the Q&A functionality in your Zoom to send us questions. But to start off, our first question is, when I have aspirations to work for a big brand or break into a new industry, how do I get a hiring manager to see past my client roster and instead focus on the skills and experience I can bring to their team?
This is actually a really great question. And it's really important. I mean, at the end of the day, most of your skills are going to be transferable to a lot of different roles, regardless of industry. And I think if you can focus on things that relate most to the role that you're interviewing on. So any skills that you have that are, you know, what they're looking for, like we said previously, review the job description, see if there's any softwares you know how to use, or if there's, I don't know, like your people skills, whatever it is that's important to this job, just really own in on that and, you know, focus on it. Another thing I suggest is do your research. This is very important, especially if you want to break into an industry. Really just keep up to date on recent news articles or trends within the industry. And if you know, sign up for things and you can get articles daily, and just read through it in the morning when you wake up in bed and you just know what's going on, then when you are interviewing with someone and you bring that up and they're like, oh, they actually do know their stuff. They understand the industry. They understand what's going on. And if you have the skill set to do the role, then I don't see any reason for them to not pick you over someone else.
Yeah, I would add too, we've seen so many candidates making pivots during this time. I think being able to kind of explain your why, like why are you passionate about this new job or this new industry, is also really helpful to, you know, have the hiring manager see that you, to Brittany's point, have done your research, like put thought into this decision. So our next question is, and this you sort of touched on, but I think we get this question a lot. How can you explain gaps in your resume during an interview?
Yep. It's a really important one. And like I said before, just be honest. Honesty is always the best policy. The truth will always come out. And I think that people are a lot more understanding than we think. And, there's always reasons for something. There's always things behind it. Again, like if you were laid off, just say that you were, whether it was a restructuring in the company, whether it was due to what's happening in the world right now. Again, if you had to take time off for a family member or a health issue, I mean, those types of things are a little bit more personal. You don't need to go into crazy detail on it, but just be honest. And I think that if you are honest and you are confident in your answer and, you tell them you're ready to get back into it, I think that they'll appreciate that more than you coming up with some elaborate, crazy thing that's going on. I mean, that always just leaves bad taste in people's mouths too. So that's not how you want to start a relationship.
Exactly. I think this question is really pertinent, especially as we're talking about virtual interviews. Any advice on how to dress for an interview these days? Feeling like maybe what I would have worn in the past might be considered too formal now.
Yeah, that's a great question too. And I touched on this a little bit earlier, but I think just be yourself, wear something that you feel comfortable in. You will feel your best, if you're something that you're comfortable in, but obviously, like I said previously, not sweatpants or anything, something a little bit more dressed up that you feel, if you were going on a real interview, I don't think like blazers and things like that are as important as maybe they would have been, depending on your industry or what type of role you're interviewing for. But like no sweatshirt and sweatpants. But apart from that, I mean, just to be yourself, if you feel most comfortable and like a bright pink top, do it. If you like a black t-shirt like me, wear that. I don't think that this is hard because I don't feel like there's like a right or wrong answer. But I would definitely say like, keep it plain and simple. Maybe not something that has like a ton of words on it that might distract the person on the other end. But other than that, just be yourself.
Yeah, and I think, you said it perfectly. Like, this is your chance to show the hiring manager who you are, aside from, your resume, which is a piece of paper. So making the decision that feels the most comfortable to you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, this is a great question. If your interview is a day with 5 to 7 different interviewers, do you send a separate thank you note to each person?
So I feel like this one depends. If you were in an interview with 3 people at the same time and you're all talking about the same thing and, having the same conversations, I think it's okay to group a thank you together. But if you're meeting with them separately, like if one comes in and then 30 minutes later, the next person comes in, and those are completely different conversations. And I think that that's something that you should acknowledge. So I do think that you should space them out when that is the case. But if you're on a Zoom call with 5 people, you're all having the same conversations, then definitely I think one thank you is okay. Just make sure to add all of their names in it, of course.
So I can't believe it, but we have time for only one question. I know there's a number of questions we haven't gotten to, so I do promise we'll follow up with each of you after the workshop. But for our last question, what is the best way to approach a hiring manager from a company when that company might not be looking to hire? And we have a similar question, which is basically, how do you ask for an informational interview?
Yeah, those are great questions. And I think that just go for it. I mean, you never know. A lot of companies tend to not even post all the roles that they're working on. Some roles might be confidential. Some roles they just don't have maybe budget to post it. I don't know. It's very expensive to post on LinkedIn. So I think that, connect with the person on LinkedIn. You can always send a message. And also a really great thing to utilize is your recruiter. If you're working with a recruiter, we are more than happy to reach out to a client relationship that we have for a role that you're interested in, even if it's not posted anywhere. Maybe they don't have the need for that today, but who knows, by next week they could say, hey, I remember you brought up this really awesome candidate to me, you know, are they still available? And it's always a great way to kind of just get your foot in the door. So definitely utilize your recruiting partners. I can't stress it enough. We're here to help you. If anything, we have these strong relationships, and that's something that I always stress to my candidates too. We're here to help. So, and then also to my other point, message someone on LinkedIn. Don't be afraid to do so. It's not weird. It's not, no one's going to see your message and be upset by it. I think if anything, it's very flattering. So, and then just ask. I mean, the worst case is they say no, or we're not hiring right now. And then you try again in the future when you do see a posting.
I completely agree. And I actually think now more than ever, people have a little bit more time on their hands. So they're willing to do like a quick virtual coffee or phone call. To Brittany's point, it never hurts to ask. So that is all the time we have for today. Went by
and people, I feel like.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, I was just gonna say, I feel like people, especially now, are just looking to help people, if anything, like way more than ever. So that was just my point. Just ask.
I agree. So thank you again, Brittany. You were amazing. And to everyone whose questions we didn't get to, we will be following up after the workshop. And to Brittany's point, if you are on the market looking for work, please don't hesitate to reach out to 24/7. Check out our website. All of our jobs are posted there. We are a completely free resource for you. So thanks again, everyone. And thank you, Brittany.
Thank you.